everyone. Welcome back to the Creatively Thinking podcast. Join Carolyn Botello as she uncovers the inspirations behind some incredibly creative minds that are orbiting our local communities. Hello, Callie Gray. How are you today? Welcome to the Creatively Thinking podcast. You are an award-winning abstract artist. And I like to ask every artist what exactly makes them choose this path of a career. Is it expressing yourself visually, working with your hands, or communicating your emotional insights?
Okay, well, hi, Carolyn.
I know I didn't let you in there, did I?
Yeah, well, hi, Carolyn. Okay, so you've asked me what makes me choose this path for a career. Well, it's all of those things. I can't quite remember what you said, but it's all of them. And I've always done creative things. Like I'm definitely a creative person. So everything I've done has always been some kind of basically creative. Like growing up, my mum was a dressmaker. So right there, I had a house just chock-a-block full of fabric. So I think that was my first creative views were fabric and fabric design and texture. And so, textures, patterns on fabric was pretty big in my life to start with. And also my grandmother also was an artist. I didn't really know my grandmother very much. I met her maybe a couple of times. But just the thought that she's an artist, I don't know, it really kind of inspired me. And I saw a couple of paintings and I thought, oh, these are pretty good, And plus I was pretty good at art at school, right? And I think there's also something really romantic about being an artist. So it's like, well, what else am I going to do? That sounds good, doesn't it? When you say I'm an artist, it sounds really classy or something.
Yeah. It does.
So yeah, I like working with my hands. Definitely. I like doing visual things. And I guess that's what I'm good at. I was pretty good at looking after people too. I did for a number of years. I worked in a group home as a caregiver. I actually really loved that as well. So that's just a whole other side of me as well. I guess. Yeah. And even as a kid, I remember entering at school. You do art class and then they get you to enter like a few competitions and stuff. And even doing that, I won a few. So I'm like, oh, okay, I must be quite good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that helps, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reinforces that, you're thinking that you're doing well.
And you win something. And you're like, okay, I guess I must be all right. And these were big national competitions. Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I don't remember ever coming first, but certainly placing very high up. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely meaningful.
Yeah. Does that answer that question?
So,
I can't remember. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. When you indicate that nature nurtures the soul, that when we embrace it, we find freedom to explore, dare, and dream. Are these aspects you can only reach as a practicing artist? Where in your creative process, would you say is your ultimate sort of Zen moment, the pinnacle of creativity? Is it in capturing the composition, the act of painting, or even in the exhibition stage?
Okay, so, well, I think that I've said nature nurtures the soul. That's not just for artists. I think that's everybody, really. I think everybody would agree that, well, it is for me, and certainly most people I know, that when you're in nature, you just feel fantastic. If you totally immerse yourself in nature, you can connect to something that's primordial, I guess. And so you definitely don't need to be a practicing artist. Mm-hmm. And also the definition of an artist is not just a painter or a writer or an actor or all of those things that we think of as the arts, but it's just the way you live your life. Like you can be a creative person, or you live in a creative way. To me, that means you're an artist too, really. Mm-hmm. You're not a practicing professional artists say, but you just live a creative life. And in doing that, you're in tune with nature, I think, anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So painting, you asked about the ultimate Zen moment. Well, I don't really know. I mean, there's certainly, I think the best time is when you get in the flow. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
painting and you just never know when it's going to come. It can come out of nowhere, or
And it's like you
yeah,
lose
you just
yourself,
lose
right?
yourself. You're in the flow, and all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what you do. You can't do anything wrong. Everything just comes out brilliant, and I love that. But it's
Yeah.
really hard to
Yeah.
get that. And I think sometimes the more you strive for it, the more elusive it is.
Yeah. The more it's out of
Yeah,
reach.
yeah, exactly. So you've just
Yeah.
got to let it
Yeah.
come naturally, really. So
Let it flow,
you've
right?
just got to let it flow, and if it does, it does. If it doesn't, you keep going, keep going. Sometimes
Yeah.
it'll come just from sheer tenacity, really. Yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
it's all part of the process too, and I love that, the journey of painting. Um, so,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly Zen moment is, yeah, when it all comes together. Or I think mainly towards the end of a painting, when I can see that it's just going to be a good painting, that's a real nice Zen moment too. You know, sometimes when you're doing a painting
Yeah.
and it's a struggle, this painting's just a struggle. It's been right from the beginning, and even when it is now, there's just no Zen moments. Sometimes you just have to paint over and start
Mm-hmm.
again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's about that one. Yeah, that's about it
Sorry.
for that one.
Yeah. So we met years ago in Toronto. Now you are up in Alora Fergus in the Alora Fergus area.
Yep.
How would you say the transition from city to rural as an artist has impacted your creativity? Has it influenced your subject matter? Has your style or mediums changed? Or has it only increased your reach as an artist professional? Sorry, that didn't come out right. I didn't read the word right. Have to cut that out. Okay. Or has it only increased your reach as an artistic professional by giving you more clients?
Right. Well, yeah, I did. I used to live right downtown Toronto, in a condo building. I think at the time when I was painting, yes, my art was much more, there's much more kind of like a grid shapes and rigid, and even though it was still abstract, I even used cardboard for a whole bunch of years. Like I was really into putting cardboard on the canvas and painting that on, so it had a really textural surface, but also had these lines, not the, when you strip the cardboard down, it's got that wavy corrugated bit in the middle, so I used that.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I moved away, I think the change, there wasn't a huge change. I mean, there's a huge change as an artist, which just happens naturally, no matter where you are or what you're doing. It's just the progress, the journey of art. But I think that being more in the country, because even though I'm in a small town, my backyard is just gorgeous. It's lovely here, and we can walk on. This morning I went to
Mm-hmm.
walk through the conservation area, so it's nice. That certainly made my art a little bit more fluid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shapes were definitely more fluid, less rigid. Colors, I guess, also more nature colors as well. And then also, I'm
More vibrant?
yeah, well, yeah, yeah. I mean, they were vibrant before, but it's vibrant in a different way. I think more. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like right now, I'm really painting a lot of. I'm really into landscapes and gardens and flowers. I'm doing a whole bunch of floral things. So I wasn't doing that at the time when I lived in Toronto. I go down to Florida in the winter, like with snowbirds.
That's nice.
I paint down there too.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a difference. So that's had a really big impact on my life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that has definitely had an impact on my color palette for sure. Like now it's more tropical colors and blues and aquas and watercolors, greens.
Mm-hmm.
and also more kind of
Mm-hmm.
seascapes or water is generally a theme
Mm-hmm.
that's through my work anyway, but it's even more so now since going to Florida.
You say you are inspired by the emotions nature inspired within you. Can you expand on this, or is it more of a transcendental experience that is difficult to put into words? Is it more of a feeling that you feel while you are being creative? Is the act of painting where you find that connection?
Well, it's not just the act of painting, but well, nature has always grounded me and kept me sane for sure. Like in times of trouble, that's definitely my best place for reflective thought and healing would be to go and take a long walk in nature, preferably by myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's my meditative place. Definitely, when I'm in nature, it's where I go and kind of meditate. And I talk to myself a lot, especially when I'm in nature. Hopefully, nobody's around to think I'm crazy.
Yeah, that's okay. That's where you get the most sense,
It is,
right?
yeah. It's like they say it's when somebody starts talking back to you, that's when you've got problems. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I do. I talk to myself. I talk through situations while I'm out for a walk in nature. I use nature as a place for visualization, um, for things that I want to happen, say in the future. Um, like I remember before when I was living in Toronto,
No.
but before I moved to Laura, I was really into like the law of attraction. I don't know if you've heard of that. Where you kind of believe you visualize that
Yes.
you've already got the things that you really want, but
Oh,
you
yes.
can't want them. You have to just imagine you've already got them. So I got really into that, and so that worked out pretty good for me actually. That's how I met my husband, and I got to spend time with my mom in England, and I got to be a painter. If you're into the law of attraction, I can tell you it works. Yeah. Yeah, and what were we talking about? Oh, nature, right? Nature. Now I'll tell you the emotions that I feel in nature are of peace and joy and contentment, happiness, stability, and of course a sense of awe
Mm-hmm.
and wonder at times because
Mm-hmm.
nature is pretty
Mm-hmm.
powerful, like the raw power of Mother Earth. You know she's in control, and that she always gets the last word for sure. I mean, you
Yeah.
can see that with things that are going on with climate change at the moment. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, nature. Ooh, don't mess with nature. But it also nature it gives you a sense of hope. And I also really believe that we're all connected, and that we're not separate from nature or God for that matter, and that we're non-duality, and that we're all connected, and everything that happens to me is part of what happens to you. And it's that when I
Mm-hmm.
paint, I'm trying to be in that language, that feeling. I'm trying to express through
Mm-hmm.
painting my sense of that connection. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I
The
think the way to put it. I'm
interconnectedness.
trying to paint how nature
Yeah.
makes me feel connected to everything.
You are quite prolific.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Does your creative practice lend itself to being this way, or is it more of a controlled activity? Do you use photographs, or do you prefer to paint, what is it, plein air? Meaning outside.
Plein air, plein air.
Plein air meaning outside, painting outside. Or do you work from a memory and the act of painting somehow releases the memory?
Oof, well, that's quite a mouthful there. Let me see. Well, you said I was quite prolific.
Yeah.
I probably have to disagree on that one. Part of I'm always I'm whipping myself saying, you got to paint more, you got to paint more, because it's just never enough, right? It's more, well, yeah, I know other people think you're painting a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
perhaps to some people I am, but to other people, it's like, oof, some people I know that just churn out so much work, but in some ways you have to, because not all of it's going to be good.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
to just keep turning it out.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, what else did you ask me? Oh, you asked me about photographs. Well, no, I don't use photographic reference when I'm painting. It's purely intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just paint from my intuition, my soul. But I do love taking photographs. And although I don't specifically use them, the art of taking photographs for me is it keeps my eye trained on composition, looking for good, always looking for good subject matters, and it's filling up that tank, that reservoir of ideas
Your
and
own picture
inspiration.
file in your brain, right?
Yeah, my brain, it's filling it all up. Soaking it up like a sponge, everything that's going around me. And taking photos is very good for that. It's good. Sometimes I'll look through old photographs, and that can be very inspiring too.
Yeah.
And taking photos also helps you to stay curious
And stay present.
Stay present, yeah. But when I paint, it's definitely it's an intuitive way of painting, and that as I paint, like I'll start off kind of with big blobs, big area, like a big area and a small area to paint, and then that's a layer, and then I'll put some marks on, and I'll just keep adding more layers, and each layer informs the next. So that's telling the last layer is telling the next layer where to go. Now it doesn't always lead you in the right direction. Sometimes it takes you somewhere and you're like, nah, it's not meant to go down here. That's not good.
That's not the right direction we're going today.
No. And sometimes you got to paint things over because they just come out terrible.
Part of the process, right?
Yeah, but it's all part of the process.
Yeah.
And it's also for me, like when I paint as well, brush strokes are very rhythmic. Like I use a lot of repetition, and it's almost like the brush strokes are like it's like a dance. When you dance, just free form dancing, you haven't planned anything. You're just trying to be a bit gracious and a bit you're trying to look good, right? So that's what that's what painting's about for me. It's about this finding this rhythm and this groove. I mean, sometimes I'll even kind of put my whole body in there almost with making marks, and just kind of really get into it, or put some music on and kind of dance. That'll help. And I don't really paint outside, but that's something I might try in the future. The town here, Allura, actually has a big plein air festival every year in the spring.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was going to sign up for it this year, but I chickened out. But I think next year I may well do it, because I'm just right next to the pedestrian bridge that crosses, and there's the Allura Mill. So I'm like right downtown. So there's just lots of beautiful things everywhere. So I could, whip up a few mill paintings maybe or something. Yeah, for sure.
How would you describe your creative practice if you had to condense it into one sentence? Would you describe yourself as being one with nature and it speaks through you? How would you describe your interconnectedness with nature? I feel like you just said all that, but if you could explain it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then you've already explained it.
Yeah. Well, let's see. A one-liner is I paint in layers, with each layer informing the next step. Or let's look at nature. Nature's organized chaos to some respect. And for me, nature is very vibrant, it's very joyous and powerful. It's wild, it's adventurous, and it's unknown, magical. Yeah, definitely. And I think of my painting as weaving all those threads together, all those things that I just said. And I think art, just like nature, it has the power to transcend boundaries and connect us to our inner selves. And I think that connection to nature and art both can bring incredible healing and mindfulness in the way that we live. Yeah. I posted this quote on Instagram today. Let me see if I can remember. It's by Seneca or something. Oh, it was so good. It was. So art is like highly sensitive people reporting back to the group what art is like for them, what reality is like for them. Yeah, not art is highly sensitive people reporting back to the group how reality is to them. Oh, that was really cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I saw one recently, but I'm not going to try to look for it because I don't even know where I saw it. But it was something about the artists are the intelligent ones or
Yeah.
something. But I forget the rest of it. There's more to it than that. But I thought,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds right. We're the intelligent ones. Yeah. And we'll be right back. If you were to describe your work as being influenced by an artist from art history, who would you say inspired you creatively? Has it changed over the years, or have you stayed consistent and only deepened your awareness and how this style has influenced you intuitively?
Well, yes, it's definitely changed over the years, and it's constantly changing. Let's see. Let's go back to when I was a child, well, as a teenager. I remember this was something that really, really changed how I saw art, I guess. As a young girl, I grew up in Nottingham, United Kingdom. I remember that we went on a school trip down to London, and we went to see some exhibitions, some art exhibitions. And I mean, even though I'd been exposed to a lot of textiles and patterns and bold colors, my mum never had any art on the walls. I don't know why, but she just didn't. So there was nothing around the wall. It was all for me as a child growing up, purely just looking at textiles and that kind of thing. It's not like we had the internet back then, was it? But we went to this exhibition in London, and it was Hundertwasser. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Sounds German.
Yes, he's Austrian, actually, an Austrian painter.
Oh, Austrian.
I think his main paintings are like kind of in the 50s, 60s, 70s, that kind of era. He's not alive anymore. But his paintings, I remember staring at them and just being gobsmacked, like, wow, this is totally different. And he would paint, he had this whole theory as well that was based on the spiral. And he's one of these artists that also went on and a bit like Gaudi, he did architecture as well and did some amazing buildings that some of them are in Vienna. So I actually did get to go see those. So these buildings are also based on this form of the spiral, that there are no straight lines in nature. So just like the Gaudi buildings, they're just all kind of undulating and just bold colors and beautiful, like little mushroom bits. And so his paintings were just very, very powerful, especially the colors. He uses lots of reds and yellows and greens, very pure pigments and pure colors. And they were the subject matter. They were all things in his life and his world. Like he'd paint a lot of houses, but they'd go around in this spiral. It was just like, so you got to check him out. 100%.
Yeah, I'm totally going to check him out.
It's amazing. You also used a lot of gold paint too, which is kind of unique. I've never seen that before.
Oh wow!
So that was really very influential.
Wait a minute, you're saying you didn't notice? Do you don't remember Klimt, Gustav Klimt, like in art history? He used tons of gold.
Oh, I love. Yeah, I mean, but I'm saying this was like my first time in England. Maybe I was like 14 or 15 when I really suddenly saw different art. Up till then, we weren't really very exposed to art, to be honest.
Oh yeah, because your mom with the textiles, yeah.
It's mainly just textile. And even at school, I mean, we did art, but I don't remember people showing you these amazing paintings. But yes, Gustav Klimt, another person that's just like mind-boggling. And the size of his paintings, the scale too. I went to see like his Kiss there in, I think it was Vienna. I was just like, wow, because it's huge. It's a big painting. It's just breathtaking. Yeah, he was another one. Gustav Klimt for sure. I'd forgotten about him. So thanks for that little reminder there. And also some of the giants of art, like I remember being really into Ferdinand Leger.
Yeah, Leger's good.
Yeah, I used to love his stuff too. Again, it was those very bold, bright colors and lines, I guess, shapes. Picasso I was into for a while. And then I guess there was a shift, and then I started being, because these were all more kind of things like houses or people. And then Monet, when at Monet's gardens, I saw those two, and I was just like, wow, like his paintings of his garden at Giverny. It was just his water lilies. That was mind blowing too, and his haystacks and those kind of paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I really especially love the work of Jean-Michel Basquiat. Love that. He was just such a shame that he died so young because he was so talented.
Mm-hmm.
His raw energy and his ability to just make a language and put it on a canvas,
Mm-hmm.
just phenomenal for me. Like I just love it. And same with Andy Warhol. I loved Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
Not so much maybe his art, and though I do love his art, but the whole thing of him and this factory and this,
Yeah, his persona.
he was the brand, he was the mark.
Yeah.
That just, I just thought that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love him. And again, another guy died too young, very sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get a lot of influence as well from my peers,
Mm-hmm.
or seeing what they're doing. Like I follow a bunch of people on Instagram and Facebook and stuff who I admire and love their work.
Mm-hmm.
And for sure it rubs off and it comes out in certain ways. Yeah. But the biggies would be definitely Jean-Michel Basquiat, Hundertwasser,
Mm-hmm.
Klimt, to think of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And Monet. Yeah. Yeah.
After you complete your artworks, do you see them as individual, complete pieces, or as a part of a greater whole, a part of your overall oeuvre of works that are connected? In other words, do you work in series or individual works where they are completely on their own?
Well, that's a really good question. Do I see them as individual, part of a greater whole? Well, it's definitely both. I do.
I know it's hard to separate, right?
It is totally. I do work on a series, so I don't like work on one piece, one painting from beginning till end. I've always got like a room full of paintings that are always half finished. So, and I try and start maybe, well, right now I've just started 3 biggish paintings, 36, 48. I'm working on those 3, but I also have other ones on the go as well. These 3, I'm kind of trying to really narrow down my process. I'm really kind of trying to do the same thing on each one and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the times I'll start a series with maybe 9, anywhere from 6 to 9 pieces in a variety of sizes, usually a couple of really big ones. I'll pin on the wall kind of thing, pin a big piece of canvas up and going down to smallish, but not that small. If I do anything that's like 12 by 12 or under, I have to just do those all at the same time. I find it hard to mix big paintings and very little paintings for some reason. So if I do, like if I'm going to do a bunch of little paintings, which I haven't done for ages, I'll have to just do them all together. Yeah. So what else did you just?
I can repeat it if you want me to.
Yeah. What's that?
I said I could repeat the question if you want me to.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
After you complete your artworks, do you see them as individual, complete pieces, or as part of a greater whole, a part of your overall oeuvre of works that are connected? In other words, do you work in series or individual works where they are completely on their own? So it's just, do you work separately or do you work in groups kind of thing, a series?
Yeah. So, well, yeah, definitely. I'd say I work on a series, but when they're finished, they are their own thing. They're not. I mean, they can be connected to a series, but they're.
That series becomes one piece. Is that what you're?
Yeah, it's got its own life. It's its own thing. Then you've got to go through the whole naming process, which can be a bit complicated. Yeah. I always try to pick names that are either mindful or a little bit with a bit of sense of humor. Yeah. I mean, my paintings I try to make them joyful and joyous, and people always say that my painting makes them happy. So try and give them titles that are similar.
Reflective as that, yeah.
Yeah. Another thing, when I'm working on a series of paintings, and say I've made up I've made up a whole bunch of one particular color. It's on the palette and I don't want to waste it. So then I'll look at what's in the stack. I'll look at what else is there and think, what else could do with a bit of this color? Just go through each one and put a bit of this color on this, and then, just pick out areas and put it on. Actually, that's kind of how I work mainly. I don't particularly put out a palette of set colors. I'll work up kind of one color at a time and put a bit of that on everyone, and then go to the next color and put a bit on that. And so it's kind of a strange process, but that's what I do.
Well, no, that sounds good, because you want to be mindful of the paint, because paint's not cheap, and you want to.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I hate wasting paint. Yeah, and that's something that I'm always trying to work off. But I think that's also just growing up, with a mum that grew up in the war, that generation where, and it kind of rubbed off into your kids that don't waste anything.
Oh, I know. I'm like that with my parents. They came over on a ship from England, and so they were talking about they had to eat like moldy bread at the end, and I'm like,
yeah,
I know. I'm like always making sure I use up everything, and if there's a bit of mold on the bread, well, just pull it off. You can still eat. I know exactly what you mean. I'm thinking exactly like my parents too. Just don't waste. Just gotta
yes. Don't waste, but you got to be careful, because sometimes that can make you miserly.
Yeah.
Like with paint, sometimes if you need a big gob of paint, you just got to go for it. But I've been working on that, because that's a hard thing to break. These years of living sparsely, and make sure you don't waste any food, or don't use too much water, or all these things. I can still hear my mother yelling at us. Get off the phone. That was always the big one. Of course, it doesn't matter nowadays, right?
No,
but back then you had to pay every penny for the call. It's like, get off the phone.
In your artwork, do you have meaning in your method of executing your works, or do you prefer the connection you have with the paint when you paint? The renewal, the memories, is that the structure you have more with your subject than your medium, or do you have metaphors you communicate?
Yeah, well, I think I kind of just answered that, really, in that the answer to that. It's in some ways it's to do with the paint, isn't it? The physicality of the paint, because I'm an abstract painter. It's not so much about the subject. It's not like I'm painting a person or a house or something.
Yeah, you're not trying to achieve accuracy.
Yeah, so it's definitely about the physicality of the paint. It's not just that, but that's definitely part of it. Yeah, like I say, I'm still trying to hone down my process at the moment. So I'm trying to make every painting start in a similar way, which is the physicality of the paint. Like it starts with composition of something big, something small, big globs of paint, and working from that, and then it's about finding the composition. Because just because it's an abstract, it's still very important to have a good composition. And in fact, that's really important. If you don't have a good composition, even if in an abstract, it just doesn't matter what you do. You're going to go round and round in circles, and it's going to look like crap.
Yeah, it'll look like mud.
Yeah. And in some ways, composition, it can also mean that you've chosen to have a composition that doesn't have a composition, and that it's all the same, you know what I mean? Or that it's all chaos. Although I'm trying to embrace the fact that I do kind of paint generally kind of a lot of chaos, but at the same time, it is good to have quiet areas in your painting for people to rest their eyes on. At least that's what they tell you. Yeah, you mentioned also about like metaphors that I communicate. I definitely do. Like I have certain stylized marks that there's something even I notice when I look through old pictures of my art. I have certain marks that I use over and over again. And what do these represent? Well, I think sometimes I have this kind of like it's either a U or an M shape, or this kind of it's like a bird, like a flying bird. And to me, I think that represents our, like birds are this representation of freedom,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the way they can fly. So when I paint those, which are pretty much in everything I paint, it usually means that I'm trying to express that we're free, or that we need to be free, and that we need to fly in the metaphor of enjoying life and loving life, and that we have all this freedom and we're so free and lucky and we should be grateful and blah blah blah, right? And it's also, oh, another thing I do is polka dots. I've noticed I have a lot of polka dots in my art, and those represent fun.
Yeah.
Definitely fun, childhood, like
Yeah.
innocence, game playing, the cheeky side of life, the fun side of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I noticed that just lately I wasn't putting polka dots in my work. I'm like, uh-oh, I like the polka dots, so I'm trying to put them back in again now. Because they definitely represent fun. And I think when people see that, they just, you see something that's got polka dots in it, it's just instantly makes you feel fun, right? Just
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are your thoughts on authenticity and originality? Is this critical in your practice as a pursuit, or do you see it as already evident in your work being abstract?
uh,
As an abstract as an abstract artist, do you
oh,
have any insights to share on the transformation of your natural subjects to artistic completion?
well, let's talk about authenticity and originality. I think those things,
Mhm.
like I see a lot of people that struggle with that, in that they don't feel they're authentic, or they haven't found their style, right? Like a lot of people are selling courses on like how to find your style,
Yeah.
and how to be more original. And I think that eventually just comes. Some people are lucky; they just seem to have it right away. But I think that's something you just got to keep going and going and going and practicing. And I also think that if you look back at your own work, always keep record of your work, take photographs as much as you can, take videos, whatever, just be somewhere, keep looking at that stuff and examine it and try and figure out, well, what was I doing here? What do I like? What don't I like? What works? What is mine? What am I seeing that's in all of these paintings? And eventually you'll probably see something. It might be a way that you do a painting, it might be a certain line or a certain mark. And do that more. Do that more, because that's going to make you stand out. That's going to make you be original. So that's something I'm doing right now. I've just started these 3 paintings, but I've started them by going back and look
Mhm.
at some of my paintings that were very
Mhm.
successful. I thought, like, yeah, this is a really good painting. I love this painting. It sold right away. Like, I'm going to try and recreate it in a
Mhm.
way, but I'm also looking at, well, look at how these paintings, they all had those little bird shapes, or these little net shapes that I do. And I'm like, that's me. And I need to remember that. And I need to keep putting that in stuff, because that's who I am.
It's like your signature.
It's like my signature. Yeah. Yeah. So I've been really working on doing more of that, because sometimes in the
Mhm.
process of being a painter, sometimes if you keep going and keep going and
Mhm.
keep going, that's good. You want fresh and you want new, but you forget where you came from. And I think that's why it's really important to look back at your old stuff to see what worked and what didn't, because otherwise you can go forward and all of a sudden you're painting a whole bunch of works. And I'm like, they don't have any of your little marks in it. And you're like, well, what's wrong? I thought I'm progressing. I thought I'm getting
Mhm.
better, but people, it's not selling so well, or it doesn't look right. You're like,
Yeah.
well, because you've forgotten your little bits of who you are. You forgot to put your little signature in it. So that's really important. So everybody's listening there. That's a good thing. Go back and look at your own work and see what it is that you can add to make it more authentic. Oh, and also I think, like, when it comes to like copying people's styles, in order to grow and learn, I don't think there's
Mhm.
anything wrong with that. And even if you do copy somebody's style and try and think, oh, this is it, I'm going to paint like this, well, it won't work because it's not you. But you can learn something from it and you can grow from it, and eventually it'll go and
Mhm.
you'll get to your own style. But it
Yeah, I
is, I
definitely
mean, that's
copied
what great
Gustav
artists
Klimt's
did years
the
ago, right?
Kiss.
They would copy the masters.
Yeah.
And that's a really, I'm sure you probably did that at art school, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was really fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, you probably learned a ton from doing that, right? Yeah, like learning from great masters. I don't think I've ever actually managed to copy an old masters because I always get bored halfway through it. But but doing that, I know that's a really good exercise because you really have to think, well, how did they do this? And then you've got to try and execute that. And it really makes you grow as an artist, I think.
And we'll be right back. Well, I just thought of another one while you were talking about all these paintings you're doing, and I've thought of it with other artists, but I just always forget. It's just like, I guess maybe I should do a logistics episode with everybody just putting in their little uh answers to this, but it's like, what do artists do? Okay. Because like as an artist, you have so many works, right? Like you've painted so many works. Do you just get bigger houses to put these in, or you sell them all right away? Like I'm just thinking logistically, where did these artworks go? Like, do you just do you just have big houses? Like, I don't know.
That is a That's a fantastic question. Oh my God. Yes, you have to ask people that because, yes, oh my God, that is always a huge problem. I was just talking to my husband the other day. I'm like, because we have a basement, but it's an old basement, right? It's got tree trunks down there. This is a really old house.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need more space again. I'm like, do you think I could use the basement to store stuff in? Put it off the ground because yeah, you do end up with tons of paintings, and you're like, I mean, a lot of the times I will recycle after so many years. I'll just recycle an old painting. I'm like, well, I'll try and sell it. I try and sell things cheaper when I do my studio tour. I usually have a bunch of really
Yeah.
old paintings that are really cheap. Just trying to move stuff. Because other than that, it's just you've either got to repaint the canvas, but some of them that's not possible because they're just too lumpy or they've got stuff on there. So you got to strip them down and just use the stretchers. But then yeah, paint. I mean, I know some painters that like have like huge stacks areas where they've just got all tons of paintings just stacked up. Even when you look at old paintings, old photos of Picasso and he had like 3 or 4 studios, but they're all just stacks and stacks of paintings against the wall, just tons of them in various states. But I mean, you can't just move to a bigger house. Yeah, I mean, ideally, you want to. That's why I'm always trying to hone down my process because ideally, I like to have paintings where I don't have that problem. They sell, they're gone. And I got room to carry on and paint some more. And I'm always so jealous and so inspired by these artists that they do a show and then like, oh, I sold out. I'm like, what? You sold every painting? I'm so jealous because that's never happened for me. But some people do. Not many, not nowadays, but they do. That I think that is the ultimate recognition of if you're a good artist. If you paint a collection and then they're gone. You can sell them out, and you don't have to worry about storage. But yeah, storage is a big problem, and for a lot of people, if you don't have a studio or you've just got a little tiny room, what do you do with this stuff? I guess you buy storage, but again, that's another cost. Or even like renting a studio in like when I was in Toronto, I did rent a studio for a bit of time, but it was expensive and small. There wasn't really anywhere to store stuff. And I looked at prices now. I was like, oh
Yeah,
my
wow.
God, that's like a mortgage just to have a studio. You think back to like the 1970s and 80s, we're thinking like even Warhol and Basquiat. I mean, they had great big spaces in downtown New York for
Yeah.
dirt cheap. I'm like, lucky buggers.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's so hard. Everything is so expensive. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a really good question. I don't have a great answer for that other than I just trying to paint paintings that will sell so we can
Recycling them. Yeah. That's,
or
I never thought of
recycle.
that because I only painted over one of my paintings so far. But yeah, that's totally,
Yeah.
totally the
Oh
best
yeah.
way of just, finding
Yeah.
storage.
Oh, I do. Yeah. After a while, they don't sell and it's been sitting around. I was like, okay. Or, you can even paint over it maybe and leave bits of it coming through and use that as your starting point or paint over it with a thin coat of white and then you'll see something coming through it.
Yeah. And then
That's
it's
another
still
way.
the older painting's still
Art.
there. Yeah.
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 So
There
you've
you
got
go.
something to paint on top of this. Oh, okay. Well, it's a start, right?
I was wondering what your thoughts are on how the cities
Okay.
you live in influence your work as an artist. Is it in the form, style, color, or does it be or how does it become part of your visual identity?
Uh, well, not really in a city. I'm in a small town, Allura, but we do have a lovely arts community here, like the Allura Furbs. I'm part of the Allura Furbs studio tour, which is coming up soon at the last 2 weekends in September and into October. So there is a big artist
Nice.
community here, and there's an Allura Center for the Arts here as well, which is lovely, a beautiful, used to be a schoolhouse, and they have studios in there and a gallery and a shop. I'm also near the Allura Mill. I have a bunch of my paintings in the Allura Mill too. They have all they tie in with the Allura Center for the Arts, so they put paintings there. So it's an artist. It's very an artisty community.
In your opinion, how does music and art interconnect or influence each other in your practice, visually and or spiritually?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, music. Yeah. Sometimes I will put music on to while I'm painting. Not always. I actually kind of like silence. Like for about the last 8 years or so, I'm really into either silence or I like listening to podcasts or mindfulness talks or something. But music it is an influence. You can almost use it to get into a rhythm, which can come out in your body language, which comes out on your paint. So, and I mean, and music's an art too. I mean, and just there's just so much fantastic music out there. So music, yeah. And my music has changed
Mhm.
just wow.
What's trending, right? Mhm.
When you're young, you're all into what's for the young uns, right? The pop stuff and what's going on, what's trending, and then for a little while there, when I lived in Toronto, I used to go to a lot of just different things like the Toronto the Symphony Orchestra.
Yes, they are good.
Yeah, and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to see Yo-Yo Ma.
Oh wow, that would have been
Yeah, my parents were like, "What?
fun.
You're going to see Yo-Yo Ma?"
Oh, wow, yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah.
But then I took my dad to Nine Inch Nails, so I
Ah,
guess that kind of was like,
nice,
"What?"
nice, nice. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's nice to have different music. I mean, one of my favorite bands, although I haven't listened to them for a while, was The Prodigy. Love that raw energy. I just love that. I mean, that's like kind of drum and bass music. Certainly not really my generation, but I also love like 80s kind of music as well, which is not what I guess that's maybe not your, but my growing up.
Mhm.
More like a flock of seagulls. They're playing here in Kitchener on the weekend. I'm like, oh, I'm going.
I love the 80s music
But
too.
they also had the Dandy Warhols are playing at the same time. I'm like, oh
That's awesome.
no. Who do
Dandy Warhols are up there? No way.
Yes, on the same time as the flock of seagulls. I'm like, well, which one do I pick? So I picked the flock of seagulls because my husband liked them too. Plus, I thought, well, they're older, so they might not be around for so long. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, you got to pick one. I can see both.
Well, that's what my husband and I thought when Peter Gabriel is coming to Toronto
Oh,
in September. So we're like,
yeah.
well, we got to see him because
Yes.
this is probably the last time we will ever be able to see him. So,
Exactly. That's it. You just don't know. Yeah.
mhm.
But Yeah. Music's fabulous, and I also started volunteering at there's a local theatre here in Fergus,
Hmm.
the Grand Fergus Theatre. So they had a lot of like cover bands. So that was so much fun. And then last week I actually went to a drag show. That was fantastic, and they were the Spice Queens. So they played all the Spice Girls, and I love the Spice Girls. Like I've seen it 3 times. Like, oh my god.
So that was up in Alora?
In Fergus.
Oh, in
Yeah.
Fergus. Yeah. Wow.
So that was cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, music's yeah. Who doesn't love music? But I like my peace and quiet too. I found when I get older, I can't just have the music on all the time. I like to have peace as well.
Hmm.
I think that goes also when I'm in nature. Like to me, to go in nature and put your headphones on and play music is almost sacrilege.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're in nature, but you can still hear traffic, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you're in nature, no, I want to hear the birds. I want to hear the trees rustling. I don't want to hear music. That to me, that is
Yeah.
music.
That's the natural music. Yeah. It's like
Yes,
you don't need music when you're in nature because that is the music.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So what I was actually trying to get at with that question though was how do you see that music influences your practice, or do you not see that it does?
Well, I don't think it influences my practice massively. It maybe did a number of years ago, not so much now because I don't. I generally just
Hmm.
have it either quiet and I don't listen to music. So for me, it's not huge. Like I know some
Okay.
artists, their art is all about listening to jazz and that's what they paint, right? So that's not so for me. No, no.
Where do you see your career going in the next 10 years? Do you see yourself continuing as you are or branching out into exploring a new subject or moving to Europe or the USA where you may venture into refining your abstraction in a different direction?
Yeah, I still hopefully see myself painting in 10 years or more, hopefully. As long as my joints, hold out because I've got a little bit of arthritis at times. I'm like, ah. I've always got new ideas to branch out into different subjects. I'd really, at the moment, like to do a series of beach paintings, probably inspired by the fact that I'm in Florida for half a year. But these would be paintings that would be less abstract and maybe have actual birds and beachy stuff in them. I remember years ago, I also did a bunch of paintings on cats that were really quirky and funny. Now they
Yeah.
sold right away.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to do more of those because people love that's why and people love funny paintings, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
cats, right?
yeah. I was looking into doing my art on clothing. I did get some fabric printed and I did make a dress with my art on it, but that's as far as I've got.
Yeah. That would
I don't know,
probably
that's
do
something
really
I
well.
might branch out into. Yeah, yeah. And then I'm also like I am working on well I've been working on trying to update my website so that I can include all my work as prints, like proper prints. I've been working with this
Hmm.
company in
Hmm.
Kingston there to so that's coming out
Yeah.
soon. So that you'll be able to get prints, proper prints, that I've seen and know that the colors are right and everything. As far as living in different places, yeah, I'm always open to, I grew up in England, now in Canada. I lived for a time in Belize. I've lived in Greece. I lived in Israel, not for
Hmm.
massive amounts of time, but short amounts of time. We have friends that live in Mexico. We keep talking about that. So, we might move to
Yeah.
Mexico, but probably not. I also have a grandson, so that makes it very difficult to move anywhere, right? Oh no. Another one on the way.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
always want to stay
family.
near family. It's good to see. Yeah. But then one of the sisters took off to Florida. So it's like, okay, I guess
Well, I
your
know
family
that's the
doesn't
thing.
matter
You
now.
can, like I felt bad even for my mum because I mean I emigrated and ended up living in Canada. So but family you realize when you're older, like wow, family's really important. Like it doesn't scare me to live somewhere else. I would. Still looks very appealing, and USA, I'm there half the year anyway. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Callie, for
Yeah,
being
you
part
are
of the show
welcome.
today.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, yeah, thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks, Marilyn. Yeah, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll let you know and
Look
we'll
forward
talk
to
to you
it
again
coming
soon.
out and hearing it.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks, Carolyn. You take care. Bye.
Join me next time as I go down another rabbit hole with another creative professional on their insights, their inspirations, and their ingenuity.